slash interviewing skills.
It annoys me though.
Understand how awkward I am.
Nelson Du Bois Show.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nelson Du Bois. Thanks for tuning into the show. Richard Sharp is my guest today. He is quite an incredible guy. He'll explain exactly what he does, but in many ways, he's a coach of people that want to think creatively and move themselves forward in the world in a way which is compassionate to themselves and other people around them. And just such an inspiring guy. Helped me out a lot. So please enjoy this interview. It's a monster of an episode. It's quite long, which I think is incredible. If you do too, then that's cool. Keep in mind that during the coronavirus epidemic, it's quite difficult for me to go out and get microphones here in Berlin, or a video camera or anything like that. So Richard's voice actually sounds a lot clearer than mine because I can't go out and get anything here. But with that in mind, please enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you. Richard Sharp, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Very good, very good. I want to start the interview with a personal question that is probably not very interesting, although maybe it is, I don't know. It has nothing to do with creativity at all. So your name is Richard.
Okay.
Is there any reason you haven't shortened that?
Correct. Is there any reason? No, but high school it was shortened.
Okay. Yeah.
High school it wasn't. I was famously Dick all the way through high school.
Dick,
and,
right? Yeah.
I'll be honest. The weirdest thing was when my friend's mum used to call me that. So
oh, wow.
That was strange. But it became very much entrenched. And I've never been one for or a fan of Rick. Rick's never really been an option. So
right.
I guess we go with what we have.
Yeah, my dad
you ever
Richard as
well.
well.
Yours?
Well, there's been a few options for me shortening mine. My parents call me Nels, and I'm kind of indifferent to it. When other people call me that, it's a bit on the nose. But when my parents call me that, it's fine. Other people have called me Nell, which is a bit odd. But each their own. It's not a big deal really. It as well.
I had some people for a while call me Chard.
Oh, okay.
I got that for a while.
Yeah.
Hence my So that kind of that's been used for a while. But.
Right.
So you can call me whatever you like, Nelson. Basically.
All right. Thank you.
Fascinating.
So let's get into the proper interview now. When do you recall the last time that you were stuck?
Yes, it's about 2015 till 2019.
Okay, yeah.
I guess stuck in So if I'm going to describe my feeling of stuck, my feeling of stuck is never an absence of thought or ideas. It's an absence of activity. Okay. So I guess my stuck when it comes to creativity is I get stuck in, I guess, the creative thought process and not in the actual production of creativity that leads to shipping something of value. That's probably my weakness. I know some people struggle with the ideation side, so they struggle with a creative idea, and if they had one, they'd ship it within an hour. Mine has never been that way. It's always the other way around. So plenty of ideas, but that doesn't actually mean that they turn into output, if that makes sense. So
right.
Last time I felt stuck, I don't know. I go through I go through cycles and seasons. I don't. What I tend to do is I'll jump off, so I won't songwrite for a while, and I'll just go and do something different and get unstuck there. But then the problem is I could spend 10 years and not write a song, which is pretty much what I did until about a year and a half ago. So I guess I just jump off onto something else. So I felt like I rambled on that answer, but that's kind of, you've got me thinking.
Yeah, no, that's very insightful. I guess as an intro, when people ask you what you do, what do you tell them?
That's a terror. You've asked me like the Achilles heel of questions for me. So, we our kids play soccer at quite a high level, and we spend a lot of time at the soccer club. And I was talking to a guy the other day, and he said, I was just talking to a mutual friend of ours, and I said to him, "What does Richard do for a living?" And the guy looked at him and said, "I have not got a clue." And so he came over and we chatted, and we talked for like 2 hours. We chatted because the answer is quite complicated, really, because it genuinely is. My career history and creative history is quite a complicated one. It's probably not very straightforward, and would take some time to unpack. But he left we walked over to this mutual friend after we'd chatted for 2 hours, and he said, "What have you two been doing?" He says, "Oh, I've been chatting about what Richard does." And he said, And the guy said, "Oh, it's complicated." And so I also have a very good friend of mine who's a sculptor and an artist. And when asked what he does, he says, "I'm a skateboarder." And people always look at him funny, and they say, "You're a professional skateboarder?" And he says, No, you asked me what I do, and I do skateboard. And and I love that. Like I've always loved that answer. And he said it works out who you want to talk to and who you don't, because the people who roll their eyes and walk away, I probably didn't want to talk to anyway. So my answer, I've done a lot of talking and not answered your question. What do I do? If I'm to sum up what I do, I develop people. That's what I do. And I help people develop their ideas and their passions. And my aim is I want them to move forward into a place where they actually see that become real. So I do that in a lot of different contexts. I do that with creatives, but I do that in non-profit sector. I do that in lots of different places. But if there's a bit of a theme, it's about developing people and their ideas and actually turning them into something real. And I want that for myself also.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And so if you look at it the same way I do, and like the way that I look at it is, you have kind of a mission, I guess, and like something that drives you forward, and then you have a way to carry out that mission. So like for me, I mean, I don't know, I'd probably struggle to put my mission into words, but my mission is X, and then I achieve that through, for example, podcasting, or I achieve that through making music, or like writing a novel, or like whatever.
Sure.
For you, what are some of well, I guess, assuming that you do see it in a similar way, maybe you see it differently. I'd be interested to hear your take on that.
Sure.
But assuming that is an intelligent way to look at it, what are some of the avenues you've taken to kind of carry that out?
So you're asking a question of, so what are some of the contexts and some of the mediums by which I've done that? Would that be
That's
fair?
it, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I've dabbled in many. I think lots of creatives do, right? And the problem is with being a creative is you're often a generalist, which means you're just good at enough things to be dangerous, but not good at one thing enough to be an expert.
Yeah.
And I guess I've dabbled in anything you could imagine. I've considered doing videos. I've done plenty of podcasting. I spent a lot of time running workshops, doing training to large groups, to public speaking to even larger groups, to small group sessions, to coaching one-on-one, to writing music and performing, to all of that. All of that's kind of been in the wheelhouse of different mediums and contexts. One of the frustrations in that is that sometimes you don't stick at something long enough to gain momentum.
Exactly.
And or that's probably not even true. You probably are gaining momentum. It's just not big enough that you recognize it as momentum. So I think my podcast that I've been doing most recently, called which was the Flea Factory podcast, which was attached to my business and talking to people about how they put their lives together. It was only when I've really not done so many recently that lots of people have been saying, when are you doing more? And it was like I hadn't acknowledged I was already creating some momentum.
Mm-hmm.
I slowed down, and it's only now in hindsight I'm realizing, oh, actually there were some people on that journey with me. Maybe I should continue that a little bit. So lots of different mediums, probably just enough to be dangerous.
Yeah. Okay, cool. What indicators do you use to decide if a project to decide if a project is not working or it's not right for you in terms of how you're carrying out your mission? Like, are there specific indicators that tell you that it's not right?
Yeah, maybe. So around some of my creativity and some of the things I've chased after, there may be a second part of that it doesn't mean it's not right. It just means it's not the right time. So it's not yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to talk in kind of the world of ideas rather than creating music, because that's probably more.
Yeah.
My creativity comes in strategy and creative thinking, critical thinking, that kind of, like, I'm very big picture on that stuff. So, but sometimes trying to ship those ideas creatively to people who don't understand what you're trying to unpack is the hard thing. So sometimes you have to go, this is just a bad idea. But sometimes it's not. It's actually a really good idea, but it's just not the right time. Like, there's some other things that need to happen before people can get on board with those ideas. So I think we've talked many a time. I often say there are kind of there are three different types of people you have in your life, and so often there's the people who think everything you do is amazing and they'll turn to gold. So, Nelson, everything you do will be just fantastic because you're amazing. That's lovely, but it's not very helpful. Then you've got a group of people who go, Nelson, I don't get it. Get a real job. Stop it. This is just weird. I don't see what you see. It's like, for goodness sake. Again, not very helpful. The problem is most of those two people are in our families. They're the people we spend most of our time with. Let's just be honest. And then there's usually a third type of people who say, I don't get what you see, but I want to walk beside you and help you achieve it. So I don't get it, but I get you, and how can I help? And so when I'm judging an idea, I'm aware that, and there'll be some people who think it's amazing. There'll be some people who just hate it. And ultimately, neither of those people I'm really bothered about, because they'll exist anyway. But are there some people who are grabbing onto what I'm creating who don't fully get it, but there's something about what I'm creating that gets them excited? So even if, say, if it's a piece of music, the people who hate it, the people who love it, that's fine. Are there the third people, the people who are going, Nelson, that new approach to this music is intriguing. I don't fully get it or understand it all or know where you're going with it, but there's something about it. Are you attracting those kinds of people? Now, if literally all you've got are the lovers and the haters, I'm like, maybe I've got to rethink that or redevelop it, or maybe there's something more to do. I would love to attract the third kind of people. Does that make any sense?
It does, yeah.
That's some And so for me, I need to have some kind of buy-in, but I want questionable buy-in. I want people who make me better, but who are on board. So that's how I test my ideas and my creativity a little bit, I guess.
Okay. What's your take on using that kind of structure of thinking towards different age groups? Like, for example, I've worked as a vocal coach, vocal consultant, whatever, teacher with young children.
Yep.
And I tried to be the third person where I would be critical in a supportive way. But I sometimes found that sometimes you have to go back to be the first person where you're their biggest fan. Is there an age bracket that you think this works best on? Or?
Yeah. I don't know if maybe there is an age bracket. There's probably an age bracket up until a certain age where people really just need people cheering them on. I think by the time people become sort of mid-teenagers, they need someone who says, "I don't fully get it, but I'm in your corner, and I'm willing to call you on some stuff. Like, I'm willing to be honest with you." Otherwise, if we don't do that, by a certain time, they end up on Australian Idol and on the reject reel. Do you know what I mean? Like, those people, they end up there, and people go, "Who told you can sing?" And you know what? That's not kind. Like, I think that's actually that's not kind to people. So telling people they're amazing when it's not actually fully true for forever. Like, yes, when you're like 10, that's really important. You can be a dancer, you can be a singer, you can be anything you want to be. And I have a bit of a bugbear whether you can be anything you want to put your mind to. I don't want to limit people and say you shouldn't strive for things. But there are certain elements that you've either got or you haven't. Like, and pitch would be helpful if you want to be a singer. That's just, and you can want it as much as you like. You probably can't fix that. Like, that, I want to be a Formula One driver, but that's never going to happen. Like, kind of, do you know what I mean? Like, so I think there's a point, and whether it's age or maturity, or I've never really thought about it in the age bracket kind of way, but maybe it's true. Yeah, maybe there's a point, but there's definitely got to become a point where it's not kind, and it's actually not helpful for people's development to continue to be that first person only, and it's sure as heck not helpful to be that second person the whole time, because people just give up. It's all too hard. So I think there comes a point where, but it also comes down to whether people want the third person or not. Some people just want the first people. That's all they ever want, and they'll want that whatever age they are. There'll be plenty of people who say, "Hey, when I'm 60, I still want you to tell me everything I do is amazing. I don't even want to ask for the third type of person." So I think it possibly is age linked at some point as far as our response, but I think it's a bit personality driven as well. It's about just who people are, and some people want it and some people don't. So.
Yeah. Can you put maybe this is impossible, but can you put Flea Factory in a neat little package for us? Like, how does that work? What is it?
I wish I could. So Flea Factory was okay. So neat little package is the.
It can be not neat as well.
Flea Factory, no, that's okay. So Flea Factory as a concept, as an idea, arose out of the fact that I'm very passionate about people. I'm not very passionate about institutional organization. I like business. I don't really care about the things. I care about the people who populate the things. That's what I care about. Flea Factory comes from a book called The Elephant and the Flea, which is by a guy called Charles Handy. And it's a book which outlines the world of work. And he proposed well before his time that the world of work was changing. And the world of work was shifting to this idea that people would no longer work for the elephants. They would become fleas. So his story is he left school, went to work for British Petroleum at the age of 19. And on his first day at work, they told him what his retirement package would be at 65. He was 19 when he arrived at British Petroleum. And he said, the idea that you would leave school and go and work for an elephant is dying. The world of work in the future is going to be about people who are creative, they've got many skills, many talents, many passions, and they're going to learn to live and work and earn a living and build a life around the things that they're passionate about and skilled for. And they're going to be fleas, and they're going to still need community. They're going to need to be connected to each other, but ultimately they won't all work for the same thing. So that's a whole book in like a minute. So for me, I was like, so whether people are creatives or whether they are working in non-profits or business, none of that matters to me. The context is almost irrelevant. I care about the people. So if you're a musician, I care about helping you build your life in a way that helps you lean into that. What does it mean to be a flea? To be Nelson, to doing the things he loves, he's passionate about, he's uniquely gifted at. How can you put his life and his living and his responsibilities all together, and how can he build a life to go and do that? Now, you could be a teacher inside a school, and I'd still care about you doing that. You could be a CEO of a large business. I still care about you. I care about you less than your business, because I think if I can help you be a healthy, focused, productive, healthy version of yourself, you're going to run a very good business, and you're going to look after people who work for you. So for me, it's all about the people. So creativity, as a creative myself, is one area that I'm very passionate about, and especially in the creative industries, because the struggle for me is it's also the industry where there's not a lot of cash flying around for the very people who need this often can't afford to keep accessing it ongoing. They might have a go once or twice. So for me, there's a balance in there of trying to sort of invest over here and work over here. And so that's Flea Factory. And then so it's coaching, it's workshops, it's walking alongside people and helping them develop personally. Then there's the podcast, which I launched last year. And that is me just talking to people, trying to unpack how they got to where they are through their career and their choices and their experiences, and how they put their lives together, balancing what they love, what they're good at, and what responsibilities they have. How have they put a life together? Because the reality is I have 5 kids. I don't wish I didn't have 5 kids. I'm more than happy to have the life I have, but it means that my responsibilities limit me from saying, like you have, I'm going to go and live in Berlin. Now, I'm not upset about that limitation, but that is a reality in the life I'm putting together. So it matters. For me, those 3 things, what you love, what you're good at, and the responsibilities you have, help you shape the life you've put together. That's about as tidy as I can make it.
Yeah. It's very helpful.
I hope it made sense.
That's what Flea Factory is. How did it come about? How did you decide this is what you need to do?
Yep. Okay. I had been the CEO of a large organisation. I was a multi-million-dollar non-profit organisation in Australia. I had many, many staff, many centres around the country. I'd been doing it for 10 years. And I had a complete, in my words, a flailing burnout. Sort of catatonic, rocking back and forwards in the corner kind of stuff. And that lasted for a good few years. It was, obviously I wasn't in that state for 3, but I left my job. They tried to get me to stay and move me in different spaces. I said, look, I need to walk away. And in me trying to put my life together post that kind of complete kind of destruction, I had to ask the question, do I want to just springboard back doing the same thing I've always done, the thing that I'm trained for, working in a larger thing, or do I need to take the advice of this book and consider that how do I put a life together around those parameters? So what do I love? What am I good at? How can I somehow make that work for myself? So Flea Factory kind of came out of me asking all of those questions. And I then personally went on a journey, literally trying everything career-wise and hobby-wise and things like that I'd tried since I left school. It seems silly, but I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. So that was when I went and I studied audio engineering. I'd been a musician my whole life, and I was like, maybe I missed it. Maybe I should have been a music producer. And then went and did it. Absolutely loved the course. Met some amazing people. Got a lot out of it. But then really went, I don't really think I was meant to be a music producer. So I actually started to eliminate things. I went back and did it again, like I did before. I picked up old hobbies that I'd had. I did other things, and then put them all down slowly. And so what I was left with was what I'm doing now. And that's where Flea Factory kind of, that's how it got built, I guess. So it's as much my journey as it is the people I'm helping. I want to help other people do it because I know how valuable it is in me. And I'm doing it too. So.
This is a two-part question. From that decision of okay, I need to leave the non-profit organisation you're involved in, from deciding to leave to actually leaving, how did that process look is the first question. Like, was it a matter of months, a matter of weeks? And the second question, how do you have any, maybe this is a basic question, but do you have any advice for people? How can they find the courage to not just fall back into what they have done? And how can they, is there anything that helped you to wake up and think, actually, I do need to take control here? And is there any specific tool or any, maybe a book, as you've mentioned, or?
Okay, let me unpack. So let me go to the first one. So what was the time frame? What did that look like? My organisation were amazing with me and very gracious. They actually gave me significant amounts of time to work through the early months. And so it was probably 6 months from the beginning until I realised part of my healing had to be not going back. I knew I couldn't work through my stuff while still knowing in the back of my head I was going back to the same old thing. Now, at that point, I probably would have told you, when I get it all together, I'll just go back and do the same kind of thing somewhere else. I hadn't got that far, but I knew I couldn't go back to the same thing. I couldn't actually go back to the same thing. And then it was just a long, slow kind of process. It was a good couple of years in which, in that time, I did the audio engineering and other. So I guess my advice is just don't sit still, which is what I didn't. I just kept. It's in the going. You work things out, right? And so, you gotta try stuff. You can't. It'll never be right. You'll never just sit there going, "Yep, then that's the right decision." I think you've got to try things and you work that out. And so, I'm prone to telling stories. Stop me if I ramble, but the analogy I would use for this, and I often do, is the way I explain this is sometimes I think life's like a dance, and I think sometimes we want to know what the 8th step in the dance is. We get really preoccupied with the 8th step. So it's like I need to know when and how I'm going to dance that 8th step. I want to know where I'll be on the floor. I want to know what the position is. I want to know what the step is. I want to know the 8th step. But here's a problem. Unless you dance the first step or the second step, it's literally irrelevant what the 8th step is. Like it's actually completely irrelevant. And the other reality is, if I told you what your 8th step is right now, you'd probably be so petrified of it, you wouldn't want to do it anyway. But I guarantee you that when you are at the 7th step, you will be completely ready for the 8th step. And so for me, it's a discipline to just, I would love to know what my 8th step is, even right now. I'd love to know what in 2 years' time this is going to look like, how it's all going to work. But all I know is I need to dance the step I know, even if it's the next step that I don't like the idea of. Like, even if it's really tough and it's really hard and I need a whole lot of courage, I'm not going to get away with not doing the next thing. So I don't let me superimpose this on your story, but I imagine, and I know, as we talked, the step to move to where you are now physically, to move overseas, is... Now, you don't know where that leads, what the 8th step is, but you know that the next step is to take that step. And it's in the going of that step that I know you'll work out your 3rd step, and then you'll work out your 4th. And I guarantee you, the step you find at number 4, you wouldn't have even have imagined, because you couldn't have imagined that step existed unless you'd have danced the one before it. So where do you get the courage from? The way you get the courage from breaking it down into just do the next bit. And so you don't have to have enough courage to do step 8. You just need to have enough courage to do the next one. And then start listening and looking around for the next one is my... We watched a movie the other day. We love this movie as a family. We watched We Bought a Zoo. Have you ever watched that movie?
I haven't seen it.
Movie, but anyway, it's good, and it's got what's his name, Matt Damon, and there's a point where he's teaching his kids. He's telling the story of how he met their mother, and he says, all you need, and I always get this. He says you need 20 seconds of insane courage. That's all you need. You just need 20 seconds of insane courage, and if you can do that, things that you can never believe might happen. And I think we need like these sustained, huge 6 months worth of courage, but I don't think it's true. I think we just need small amounts, and we need to act on them, and the next steps will become apparent. And so, for me, that paired with a reality that I just didn't want to go back to that feeling, and what I had associated had kind of broken me. I knew there was something about that I didn't want to do again. Those two things together in tension slowly moved me towards just keeping on going. Don't hear me say it was easy, and it's still not easy. And I haven't fixed all my financial problems doing this path. But I'm in the right spot for now, because I don't know what step 8 is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's also, from my perspective, I guess, it's also important to note that 20 seconds of courage isn't always such a dramatic... I mean, in hindsight, it's dramatic, but in the moment, but for me at least, it didn't feel very dramatic. I was just lying in bed, and kind of something just came to me, and I realized that, I am in control, and I need to work out what's going on here, and life is important, and it wasn't a huge movie moment at all.
That's a huge revelation to have, though. But that is a huge revelation to have, even though it seems mundane. That's quite a mind shift to realize, to flip from, well, what can I do about it? This is just the way my life is, to actually I can make a decision and do whatever the heck I want to do with my life. Although that seems mundane, that's a massive jump. And then it's less courageous, but you've still got to do it then. It's one thing to have the thought, right? You've then got to do it. And then that's when all of a sudden the first type of people and the second type of people will surround you. And they'll all go, oh, Nelson, moving overseas will just be amazing because I know you're amazing. And then the other people go, it won't work, it's a mess, just stay here and, get a real job. And then that's the question where are the third people? Where are the people that are going, I don't fully get it, Nelson, but I get you enough to know that there's something about this is right. What can I do, even if it's just a small part, to help you chase it? So for me, that's where those two bits of the conversation, I guess, come together.
Yeah. To turn a bit of a corner, can you define your largest demographic that you have worked with in a coaching arena?
willing people.
Okay. Do they realize that they're willing before they contact you, or halfway through, or?
The majority of them wouldn't talk to me if they weren't.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them stumble into talking to me, not really having a clue why they're talking to me, and in the essence of us starting to talk, they work out it's either for them or not for them. So some people for that. But ultimately, if you talk about who are the people I really achieve and work with, like I've done things with people who aren't willing, but ultimately the real work is done with people who are already wired for some kind of change, or to really try something or become more healthier and more sustainable. Like they're the people. And so for me, it's good for me to keep reminding myself that there are millions of people who aren't interested, and that's totally fine. I don't need to work with them. But there are lots and lots of people who are. So just work with them, you know. I'm also, you know, when I do consultancy with places, I'm pretty straightforward. I point out elephants in rooms, and I call shovels and spades, and it's not done in any malice. It's done with deep caring, and I do it gently. But, you know, I've said to a couple of places, if you want a consultant if you want someone who'll come in here and produce a PowerPoint presentation for you and tell you how wonderful you are, there's a million of those consultants. And I'll ring them up. Like, they'll charge you $1 billion and they'll produce a PowerPoint presentation and you'll all feel better about yourself. And somewhere in the midst of that, you'll probably come up with a new logo and a tagline, but it won't fix your problems. If you really want to, I've got a good friend, his term is if we really need to be brave enough to interrogate reality. And I love that term. I'm like, if you're brave enough for me to ask you the question you don't want to be asked, then let's do this. And I'm not going to leave you alone after asking you. I'm going to say, can I help you answer it? Because that'd be really helpful. But there's bravery in that too, right? There's bravery in being vulnerable enough to let somebody say, is that true? Like, do you really mean that when you say that? And if you do, prove it. And then say, I'll help you. You're not alone, but really you probably should do it if you say it. So who's the demographic? I think it's the people who can handle that, and who actually, I think deep down there are a lot of people who want that. They crave that kind of accountability and connection and support. But as humans, I don't think we ask for it very often. So, yeah.
Is there, whether this is in your coaching or in your other creative endeavors that are more for you rather than other people, is there one habit or a question or a tool that you have either used yourself or given to people to help kind of sort through the shit, like that existential dread? If somebody comes to you in a mess, like what's the first tool that you use?
Yeah. Right. Okay. So the first tool that I use now is I use a personality profiling tool called the Enneagram. I use that not because I'm in love with it or I'm like fanboy about it, because some people get a bit like that. But I've been using it for 15 years, so it's not a new fad. But for me, it's not. And it's used badly in many ways, but lots of things are. But for me, we have to start with self-awareness. So you have to start with, what are the things that you are likely to fall into when under stress? And what happens is when we start there is people go, oh my gosh, that is me. And I go, okay, don't despair, but we should at least acknowledge that. And the second thing you should do is stop beating yourself up about it, because you're wired to react like this. So it's okay. So take a deep breath. You're not weird. You're not doing it wrong. You're just reacting to things in a way that is in line with who you have become. And now that doesn't mean you have to stay there. But it'd be good for us to understand that. And so, because I think some people are like, oh, I'm such a failure. And I go, no. That's just a really typical response for someone who views the world the way that you do. That's just a really typical response. It may not be helpful, but it's a really typical response. So let's see if we can move forward. So that's a really cool beginning tool. The second one that I don't use enough in my own life, but I give to other people, and so I should use it on myself. Should's a bad word. I know that for any of the psychologists out there, sorry. One of the things that would be more helpful if I use myself is I use like a tool that helps you write down what you do in a day, like a rhythm, kind of. And what happens is you immediately realize the answers, I don't have any time, is rubbish. Because all of a sudden you actually see the things that you spend your time on or don't spend your time on. And so that's part of that process of saying, well, you say you value this, you don't spend any time on it, therefore those two things don't match. So I could say I personally value songwriting, but I literally schedule no actual time to sit in front of my instrument and just play. And just create for no purpose other than the joy of playing. And because that's where I think creativity lives, in the play, right? And so working out actually what you spend your time on in line with your values is really helpful. And understanding, having the beginnings of some self-awareness. So you understand your habits and your natural fallbacks are probably two tools that are super helpful. But I use the first one quite a bit, try to understand myself and others, especially people I work closely with. But the second one, I don't use it. I don't use it as much as I think would be beneficial for myself.
Right. Yeah. Well, my next question was going to be, how difficult do you find using these tools on yourself, and like, do you consider it a muscle? Like, are you better at it than the average Joe or Jane? Does that come easy to you now?
I think I'm better at the first one. I think the first one is built into me. The first one, I now often have the ability to, I can change the way that, in a live setting, change the way that I react to someone and the way they react to me. And not just like, sometimes you could be really offended by the way someone reacts to you. But I have this, I now kind of live have the ability to say, well, that's probably just how they view the world, and it's not personal. Now that's really helpful, right? Because if you can diffuse that in your own mind, you can save yourself a whole cycle of whatever the heck you're going to go through wondering why they said what they said. So I'm pretty good at reading a room, I'm pretty good at reading a group, and I'm good one-on-one in understanding pretty quickly where people are coming from and working out why they might be motivated to say or do some of the things they do. So that's kind of cool. That's a very helpful tool, especially if you're leading teams, or working, say, as a creative or a musician, working with other artists. Like that's super helpful, right? If you get in a room with a bunch of other creative people and you can get good at that, that would be really beneficial. Save you a whole lot of time and heartache. The second one, I think I'd get better at if I practiced it. And I think that's the key with all of these skills, right? So a little bit more discipline. My personality type's not high on the discipline. It's not high on the self-control. It's high on the fun and play and getting away from pain, but it's not high on the, we must do this for the next 3 hours and locking things in. So that is definitely one of the reasons I'm not good at the second one is the first thing. If that makes any sense.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Okay. Why is coaching so important to specifically creative people that might define themselves as an artist, and they're running a creative business of for themselves first. So, like, why is it important for Nelson Du Bois Incorporated, as in just me making music and putting it out in the world? Why is coaching important for that? And then why is it also important for say, a band or a recording studio organization? And how does your approach differ between coaching groups and people?
Yep. Okay. So mentoring is a big thing that people talk about all the time. And I'm a huge fan of mentoring, right? So I always say to people, get a mentor, fantastic. If you can get lots of mentors, get as many as you can, get as much out of those relationships as you can, because those are really important. But don't confuse mentoring with coaching. And so coaching is often more short-term, so 6 months at a time, quite intense, working on for a purpose. And I'm not trying to teach you what I've learnt. I'm trying to help you implement what it is you're passionate about. So you need your mentors. You need someone consistently over years and years and years investing in you, teaching you lessons of the industry, what they've learnt, telling you those stories. That's all really important. But then coaching has the ability to come alongside you and be that third type of person. So the reason I think coaching is useful is it can cross those contexts. So I can work with it doesn't matter, like a CEO or a musician or a dentist. I don't care. It's literally irrelevant, because the reality is I don't have to know how to be a dentist. I just need to know how to coach the dentist, because guess who knows about being a dentist? The dentist. So the reason I can help you as a composer is not because I'm technically competent equally or more than you, as a teacher or a mentor might be, but what I know how to do is how to ask you questions, keep you accountable to what you want, and help you know what you know, which is creating music. That's what you're passionate about. So coaching has a unique space, I think. So it doesn't replace anything. So by definition, if you're creating something, especially if you're an entrepreneur or a creative thinker or someone in the creative industries, you are producing something that has never been produced before, right? That's the plan. The plan is that you would come up with unique work. Well, by definition, there is nobody who can mentor you into that space, because by definition, nobody is in that space.
Okay.
So if you want to enter a space that no one's ever been in before, being coached into that space, for me, is the most powerful way to do it. Because ultimately, the aim is that you would inhabit that space, that new where everyone goes, we never thought of that before, Nelson. Yeah. So there's no mentor in there. There's no one in that step in front. So for me, I think for creatives trying to do that, trying to create new things and new areas, coaching can work there. Let's switch to, say, bands, or I think there's a huge need in the music industry that I think is unspoken of. I'm not sure people even know they need it. That's my biggest issue with this. And so
totally.
My work with actual bands is hypothetical, because I'm yet to find a band brave enough to want to do it. Having said that, I've done it many, 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 many times in groups, which are no different to music. So it works. The problem is you need to find the group that's capable of having a go at it. So my theory is, and I've always said this, bands don't wake up one day and break up, because bands don't wake up one day and run out of music to write and break up. They break up because one day they wake up and they realize they hate each other, and they're not sure why, and they're not sure when, but they know it happened. It usually happens somewhere around the time that money gets introduced, and it usually happens because the members of a band don't have the skills necessary to have difficult conversations with each other. And they don't have anybody who's willing to walk with them safely to have those discussions, to actually make them a healthy group, which I would do with any non-profit organization or any small group I was running. Part of the job is to help them, lead them into deeper connection and deeper, healthy relationships. In bands, no one ever has those conversations. So then you would hope that maybe a manager would offer that. Well, managers don't. That's not really the role anymore of a manager, right? It's just to connect the dots, get some money, get some opportunities. You would have hoped that maybe a manager could fit in some of that role. I don't think they do. And I know from the industry point of view, mate, there's just another band around the corner. If you can't get your crap together, we'll just sign somebody else. So Sony's not saying we're going to get a coach for every single one of these bands because we really want you to succeed. Because they don't really care. Because you can sing it or these guys can sing it. I'm not really bothered. We'll just give the song to them. And it's kind of just survival of the fittest then, right? Whoever can hold it together for long enough. And then what happens is they earn millions of dollars and then they fall apart. And so it's like a ticking time bomb of relationships and personal skills and a complete lack of self-awareness. For me, it's like a tinderbox just waiting to explode. These, young bands who get successful. It's almost like it's so predictable. It's like it's coming, it's going to blow up. And inevitably it tends to always, it ends up with somebody passed out behind a television, another one with a shaved head, because they don't know how to deal with life, right? So I think there's huge value in that space, in the creative space, to walk with creative groups to make sure that they're brave enough to have the real conversations with each other. Partly it's just about growing up as well. It's about giving them life skills. I know plenty of guys who've been musicians their whole life who, I've got a friend of mine who said, I've never had another job. I don't know how to do anything else. And he's been very successful. But, he commented to me that you might have saved our band if I'd have known you 10 years ago. I said, well, So for me, I think there's a huge need. But I think we've had this discussion before. One of my problems with coaching, especially in the creative industries, is what I offer is not something that people readily think they know that they need. It's not self-apparent that they need to ask for it. So,
I think a huge reason that I reached out for it is that I believe that I have some kind of tendency towards being an entrepreneur, and I see the services that you offer as something more for entrepreneurs than creative people. But so I reached out because I thought I was, to say more entrepreneurial than average. But I guess I just didn't realize that it's the same thing, creativity, and you really shouldn't be running a business unless you're a creative, unless you are creative. It's Let's swap over to some rapid fire questions. The answers don't have to be rapid fire, but
I'm ready.
The answers can be as long as they like.
I'll do my best though.
Okay.
The rest of my answers have been too long, so these will be fast.
No, they've been perfect answers. Are there 3 artists that you've listened to throughout your whole life, and why are they specifically influential?
Yeah.
Or if they're visual artists or directors or
Oh, okay, sure. Okay, let me go through this. James Taylor.
I love James Taylor.
And James Taylor. Can I have him as all 3? Is that possible?
Absolutely.
Is that possible for me to have him as all 3? There's something about him. There's something about the guy. I love him for multiple reasons. I literally just adore his music, number one. But there's something about James Taylor that works for me in the kind of thing I'm passionate about, which is James Taylor is not just influential for what he has sung. He's influential in the industry for, 1, who he is, and 2, what he's written for others.
Yeah.
And there are so many things, so many ways he's influenced artists and the industry that so many people would be unaware of, that I like that a little bit. So put that across to me. Yeah, there's times I play, there's times I create, but there's also times where I just help other people create amazing things, and nobody literally needs to know that I've been involved. Does that make sense? And so there's something about him in entirety that I just love. And it's very hard to explain. It kind of works for me.
Yeah. Well, can we talk about James Taylor? Because I'm also a huge fan of him. Yeah, and I remember you brought him up. Maybe like, I don't know, when were we last kind of talking to each other regularly? Probably a year and a half ago or 2 years ago.
Yeah, at least, yeah.
Yeah. I remember you brought him up once, and I was excited because I think you were going to see him in Adelaide, and I wanted to go, but I couldn't for whatever reason.
Adelaide. We did.
Yeah. What's your favourite album that he does?
He was incredible. So, oh my gosh, I'm at a point where I like anything. See, I really like Copperline. I love that stuff. I love that kind of stuff. Do you know what else? Got a guilty pleasure. Can I say this is my crossover guilty pleasure? And if you go with me on this, I will be very excited. But if you look at me weird, like I'm a 14-year-old girl, I'll be very disappointed. So I'm putting it out there. I'm a bit of a Charlie Puth fan, and I've just said that out loud. And he did that. He did the crossover song together with James Taylor, right? And I'm like, it's like fusion. It's like the fusion of everything I love. And so I actually it was really nice to hear him produce like really new music and just that edgy of contemporary stuff. And so I quite like the Puth. He's got no one writes a new age disco beat like the Puth. So I love that stuff. I love Steamroller Blues. I love his really gritty stuff. I like him. So I love him. I just something about him. I could listen to him for days.
Yeah. The first
But
album,
I'm a weird. I have eclectic taste in music. I have a very eclectic taste in music.
Such as what?
Well, see, I would also quite happily listen to Metallica for about a day. So that's weird of me saying that. But I'm completely Metallica's all about the drums. It's not about the guitars. So people miss that. People miss that the Black Album is actually about the drum mix. It's actually got nothing to do with. You can make guitars sound like that, but you can't make drums sound like that. So I could quite easily listen to Metallica. I saw Elton John and Billy Joel live at the Sydney Cricket Ground in Sydney. That was amazing. I could listen to Elton nonstop. That would be more than happy for me as well. I love Hall & Oates. I am addicted to Hall & Oates completely. Literally anything with a double clap and Hall & Oates, I'm in completely. So I can do the whole. It doesn't matter. Like I don't have a. Other than Nickelback, I'd listen to anything. I think. Oh, and I'll tell you what. No, that's not true. So someone wrote on Facebook the other day. No, that is true. Sorry. Let me add to that. It's not just Nickelback. Someone wrote the other day on Facebook. There was a list 10 things that you think other people love, but you don't. I don't know if you saw that going around Facebook. And there was like a list of 10 things, and you had to write 10 things that you don't really like, but you think the rest of the world loves. And I just wrote on a friend's wall. I wrote, U2, I'm done. That was it. That was the only thing. And so I've never been into U2, and I feel like that makes me weird. But and I know what I'm about to say next is very strange. I quite like Coldplay, and I understand they're just U 2.0. I understand, but I quite like Coldplay, but I don't like U2. Does that make me weird?
I don't think so. What's the connector between all these bands that you like? What's the common ground that they have?
That's a very good question. I think they're artists. I think that's the reality, and I think they're. I think that's probably what I don't like about U2. I don't think they're musicians.
Okay.
Does that make? So I heard a story, and it could be completely false, but it was the story of Live Aid, and where everyone was backstage, right? And they're all jamming, like you can imagine. Can you imagine being backstage at Live Aid? It would just be ridiculous. Like, and everyone's just jamming away. And the story goes that somebody turned to the edge and he said, "Oh, come on in and have a play." And the story goes that he said, "I only know U2 songs." Now, I so want that to be true because that would confirm everything that I don't like about U2. But I feel a bit like they learnt how to play music as they were getting famous.
Right.
Like, does that make sense? And that's why. So that is the link, right? Because then if you say like Charlie Puth, yes, he's like some kind of teenage girl icon. But you know what? That guy's like a musical savant. Like, artistically, he's like, not only does he have perfect pitch, but he's just got, the guy is like musically fascinating to me. And so the thing that links them is, firstly, they're probably pioneers in their areas. Like they're Hall & Oates pioneered a very clear sound. There's nobody like James Taylor's like the best of the genre, right? There's Metallica crushed it when they arrived. They did things like no one else did. So it's the guys that took a twist and took it, like, just ran. But they're all artists. So for me, that probably is the link. I probably never thought about it like that before. But I don't like frauds. So, like, do you know, like, so I'm just like, oh, I can't. So I actually think Chris Martin is a talented musician. Like, I think he's, like, if you put him up against Bono, I just think he's a immensely talented, creative musician. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just what yeah. So I don't know.
I think that's fair.
That's my little musical journey.
Okay. So
these are supposed to be quick-fire questions, but that was a very long answer.
No, it's good. It's good. This next question is, I don't ask this because I don't like them, but why do you wear red glasses?
So I only changed them this afternoon. I had black ones, and the reason I've got red ones on right now is the black ones reflected more than the red ones on camera. So that's why I changed them today. What's interesting about these red glasses is they used to be black, and I sanded them back, and now they're red. So that's me. I don't know. I have a friend who wears blue glasses. I don't really know. I'm of the opinion where if you're going to wear glasses, just wear them. Like, so they might as well be red.
Yeah,
so,
don't let them blend in.
I've had black ones on for about 3 months until this afternoon. So, no, you just wear them. Yeah, there you go. That's not a real deep answer, but, you
know. What is one book that you have gifted the most?
To other people to read?
Oh, yes, sorry. That you've gifted to other people.
Yeah, right. Okay, that makes sense. There's many. Again, there's lots in like different contexts. So there's a heap of stuff I probably wouldn't give to you, but I'd give it to somebody else. But then stuff I'd give to you, that wouldn't like. So I'm trying. Look, universally, I'd probably go back. Like the Elephant and the Flea book for me is really, like, it's really powerful. So, and it's not contextually locked. So it's trying to talk about, trying to get the end of that. The other one would be Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown. That book is brutal and amazing at the same time. So the Gifts of Imperfection is great. I feel like I need to get my Kindle out to actually. So like this is for like organizations. It's called The Advantage by Patrick Lencioni. That's a great book. I got a bunch of books on the Enneagram Made Easy, which is not here. But it's fun and it's got like cartoons in it. So that's my kind of book. What else? All such stuff. So, my background not only is in non-profit, but it's, to be honest, it's in church world as well. So like I'm a Baptist pastor by training. That's my original kind of background. So a book called The Barbarian Way by a guy called Erwin McManus, like that one, that changed my life like a good 20 years ago, probably. And he wrote another book called The Artisan Way, Artisan Soul. And that was about creativity and spirituality. That was a rocking book. And so I've gifted that out a bit as well. So there's not one. That gives you a bit of a variety.
Sure. How often do you go to the beach?
Well, I live 100 meters from the beach. I can see it out of my office window. I can see the water. And the answer to that is barely ever. And my kids went this afternoon. That's their one place they can go in lockdown because they can, there's no one around. So yeah, I'm from England, and I don't know, there's something, water and sand don't go together in my head, even though I understand they go together. I think that's a bad idea. So
yeah,
it's not. It's beautiful to look at, and I enjoy it, but it's not my place.
I see.
Ironically.
I see.
I spoke to a friend of mine who lives in Germany as well the other day, and I said, we can still go to the beach, and I'm so jealous. He's like so far away, and I'm like, yeah. Here I am, and I don't go. I felt very bad.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in Germany for 5 months, and yeah, I'm just hanging out to go again. Anyway, next question.
I'll go for you tomorrow. How's that?
Oh, thank you. So I'm almost 25. Should I be considering having children within the next 5 years?
So, should is a bad word, Nelson. A psychologist I saw once said, "You are shooting all over yourself again." So you should or shouldn't do anything, and you can and you can't, and it's up to you. At 25, let me work it out. What year was I 25? 2004? Gee, that's terrible. That's terrible. 2004, maybe. 2004. So in 2004, I had 2 kids already, and I was about a year off our 3rd. So we have 5 boys. Okay. Should you do what you want, Nelson. Doesn't matter. But know this. As I said, you balance what you love, what you're good at, and your responsibilities. And it will never get easier for you to make a decision to follow the thing you want to do with your life. I'm not saying it will be bad. I'm just saying it won't get easier. So at 41, with 5 kids, and being married 20 years this year, it's not bad, it's amazing. But it means that the natural consequence of that is there are certain things that I will not be doing with my life, and I'm not upset about it. Okay? Does that make sense? So
it does.
Have kids, don't have kids, do whatever, but know that all of those decisions equal your unique life that you'll put together. And it will mean you will get to do certain things you wouldn't get to do otherwise, or you won't get to do other things. And both of those things are okay. So,
do your kids have? No, it is. Do your kids have a line that they say when they cotton on to the fact that they're being coached?
No, but I had a lovely thing at dinner tonight. That's my eldest, so he's 18, and we were having a chat about him. We've been spending some time at night over dinner talking about being selfless and generous and thinking about our community, because we're locked indoors at the moment, and it's just just trying to think outside of ourselves. And we were watching some silly thing on YouTube and saying how silly most of this stuff on social media is just pointless. It doesn't really mean anything. And we were watching this video together, and this guy was on there, and he was like 40, 45. He's like 40, living in his mum's shed in her backyard and running a YouTube channel. And I was like, he was doing a tour of his shed. And it felt a bit sad, like the whole thing kind of, and he was saying things like, this is my life. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh. And my 18-year-old said to me, he said, that would be me without you.
Okay.
And I thought, that's like the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. And so for me, they know they're being coached because it's who I am, right? And it irritates the crap out of them because it'd be easier. It's always going to be easier not to be asked the question, always, in the short term, but it won't be actually beneficial in the long term. So I heard him saying, I understand the long-term benefits of this. That doesn't mean I love it now. So I think that's probably the nicest thing you said, but they are aware of the coaching, I would say.
Yeah.
The younger ones probably not so much, but the older ones.
Right, sure. Can I ask, aside from usual parenting, which is obviously, raising a child and molding how they think, with your coaching sensibilities on top of that, are there kind of sit-down sessions of like, all right, so let's address this with your kids, or is it dealing with things in a well thought out way as they come up?
Both. There's a bit of both.
Okay.
We have our moments where we grind to a halt and we address things. And we say, this is being dealt with now, and we're going to talk through this, and we explain the whys and the bigger picture. And what I found, I spent a long time working with teenagers in the non-profit I work for. I've done a lot of, and actually this age works for me. I'm good with young adults and teenagers. I enjoy that because we can actually talk and get into things. And so actually I often find that it's just context. It's just a bigger worldview. It's looking up. And actually when you do that and you help people do that, lots of things make sense. And I spend a lot of time talking about what we just talked when you said, should I be settling down and having children? The reality is I'm a fan of just explaining cause and effect. Life is just very much about cause and effect. So I'm like, you cheat on your taxes, you go to jail. That's not unfair. That's just what happens. Like, do it or don't. I'm not bothered. But know that if you do it, this is what's going to happen. So it's not rocket science. So just explaining to my children that they can behave however they like, but there are certain things that there are ramifications of that, not just from me, but in the world. So, it would be a good idea? Learning and practicing that while you're in a safe environment. So I have no problem with you stuffing up and messing up and making bad choices. You should probably do that while you're here, because I'll still love you. I'll pick you up. I'll dust you off. I might tell you you've been an idiot and I might talk you through it, but you'll be able to go again. The problem is, I think lots of time people kind of leave the house and then make those mistakes for the first time. And there's huge consequences to that reality. So my wife and I have always said we're not raising kids, we're raising like men and husbands. Like that's our job. Our job is we will always be in our kids' lives, but I want them to be fully capable of functioning in the world and in relationships and in their own family, despite having a connection, apart from me, but that doesn't mean I'm going anywhere. So there'll always be a couch. There'll always be a safe place. There'll be a place you can walk in the door and go, I stuffed up, and I'll say, tell me about it. I'll make you a cup of tea. There'll always be that. but we're growing men that at some point will leave us to go after the thing they love and do and are passionate about, and that's our plan. Now, that's harder than just getting your kids like they're alive, hooray! It's harder to do that work, the other stuff, but we think it's eternally beneficial. So, yeah. But we've just recently, I think, we're so busy often, but at the moment we're all home and, we're sitting down eating dinner together at the table, and it's just been a real encouraging refresh for us. So that's been good. And talking.
Yeah.
So.
I guess just as context, I'm not sure if we've mentioned this on the podcast yet. I mentioned it in previous episodes, but yeah, at the moment we're in lockdown because of the coronavirus. So, so that's why all this stuff about isolation.
We don't need to talk about it. It's not.
It's been talked about enough.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So what time do you wake up, and what do your first 90 minutes look like? And how hard is that to strictly adhere to with so many people in your house?
Yeah, no. So it depends. It also depends what kind of work. So I do a lot of work online late at night. So, I might have midnight, 1 o'clock calls. I had a call the other night where I was talking to somebody in Belgium. I was talking to somebody in Michigan, and I was here, and trying to get 3 time zones for those 3 times is like a nightmare. It always ends up with me at midnight. There's no other way to do it. So having regular days is very difficult for me. I also produce at night. I kind of go into overdrive and want to produce things. I don't like that. I wish I was the other way around. I actually would like to be one of those. I get up at 5 and work out for an hour, and then I go and like The Rock, that kind of crap. But I'm not like that, right? Like I just, I am the other way around. But what ends up happening is it just means when things are busy and the kids have to get out the door and other things, but it just means I don't sleep enough, which isn't good. Like I know that's not good. So it all depends. Usually if it's school, it's just chaos. Just get up and go and just get people out the door, and then kind of recoup once everyone's on the bus or whatever, and then kind of take stock. So it's all a bit fluid. As I said before, we play a lot of soccer. And so we're 7 days a week. Kids are off, and so Saturday mornings, Sunday mornings, we're off early. Kind of, it's very busy. So there's not a whole lot of that kind of. I have a routine that I have to get through in the morning. It's just like there's just kind of scream internally and run around until a certain amount of jobs are done, and then I'll sit down at my computer with a coffee and just go, well, what's my name again? And what am I supposed to be doing today? So there'll come a time where that's not true for me, but we are in that season, I think, at the moment.
Yeah. Maybe a more helpful question to ask might be, what's your nightly routine? So after 6 p.m., like the kids are doing what they need to do, and because if you do most of your work at night, then how do you get into that?
Yep. I start. It depends what I've got to do. If I've actually got certain tasks to get through, I just I'm one of those guys that has up-to-date email. I'm not one of those guys that has 300 unopened emails. I'm not that guy. So those people who say I've got like 400 emails I've not even read, I'll get to it eventually. I don't understand those people. So but also I'm not the guy that files emails. So I do have like 8,500 emails in my inbox, but I've read and actioned all of them. So I'm not the guy that drags things into folders. So I get all that and make sure I'm up to date, and I do that. And once that's all done, I do that throughout the day. So by the time I get to now, what time is it now? It's like nearly 10 o'clock here. No one's emailing me now, right? We're done. There's no one else is on email now. So that's all done. I've replied to all that. Now I can get down to things. Depends. Maybe a blank white piece of paper, which is my favorite thing to start with. And I'll go from there. Or it's just head down. problem with me is I like noise, so I have to have something going, which would drive some people insane, but I need something going, so I might kind of live by my little Bose headphones. Something has to be kind of, I don't know, it compartmentalizes my brain and I can just kind of get on with other stuff. Clears the distractions. If I had big talks to write, I used to write them while listening to Linkin Park like 10 years ago. That was my it was a ridiculous soundtrack, but it worked for me. Like kind of, it just kept part of my brain entertained while I was productive somewhere else. Weird.
Yeah.
Right? But it depends. I like to have lots of scheduled meetings if I'm going to have them at night, you know.
Okay. Yeah, I find the listening to music thing an interesting topic of discussion because I'm the opposite. Like, I mean, obviously a lot of what I do, my ears are occupied because I'm writing music and, you know, editing or mixing or whatever. Yeah. But like if I'm writing something, if I'm not making music, I can't listen to music if I'm working on something. And I just find that so interesting. And like my girlfriend is a visual artist and she always listens to things as she's doing it. And there's even some musicians I know, or many musicians that I know, yourself included, that can listen to things while they're doing non-musical things. And I just can't. And I find it really interesting.
Yeah. It depends what it needs to be. It needs to be something in particular. Like it will change from time to time. But the bad thing about that is I have to force myself into the silence to actually say write music. So because then that's a whole nother thing, right? So then that's quite a different space for me. So I kind of fight my way the other way. I have to fight my way into writing music rather than fight my way out of writing music. Does that make sense? Like kind of instead of putting the music down, like my own music, I have to do the other way. And so then writing music for me is just it's a single, and it's quite a nice discipline, but I don't, by this time at night, this would be the time I would write, but I can't really crank things up at this moment. I've got lots of people in bed right now. So, you know, that rhythm doesn't help me. The schedule's not helpful for musical creativity, but it is for like banging things out, online calls, other things. So,
Yeah, I think that's where the responsibility aspect of what you were talking about before comes into play because, for example, it really frustrates me that I can't make music because I'm living in apartments most of the time here in Berlin, well, all of the time, and it's just not a possibility all the time. And I think so. Like back to the children thing, like having kids. For me, at the moment, in the next 5 years, would probably be a bad idea because I need little responsibilities at the moment, just because that's what my work requires. Yeah, but it's so interesting.
Yeah.
Who is the first person that comes to mind when you think of the word punchable?
Punchable. I don't have that urge. I don't have a punchable instinct. There's very few people I dislike or I want to... I have musical dislikes, but I still wouldn't punch them. I'd still be nice to them.
Yeah.
Is this where I say that, like, I can't stand Kate Sobrano or Tina Arena? This is so... there's something about them, but I still wouldn't slap them or punch them. I don't have that urge. That's probably not a context or an urge I have, but someone that irritates me, Kate Sobrano and Tina Arena. Can't do their music.
Purely from a musical sense, nice or their personalities? But
just it. Oh, okay, Delta Goodrem then, if it's from personality point of view. Sorry, that's not true either because that's cheap, right? Because that's from The Voice, and I know the people that those people are and not who they are in The Voice. But no, I don't have that urge.
Yeah.
I've just realised another musical idol I didn't tell you about was Tom Jones, and I saw him live. He was amazing. Changed my life.
Oh, yes. Tom Jones. Oh.
Yeah. Tom Jones. Anyway, sorry. Continue.
Who comes to mind when you think of the word successful?
Who comes to mind? I think, again, there's just so many different definitions of that word. I think if you can manage to pursue something you love with integrity, without compromising significant parts of what you believe in, and you can earn a living and provide for your family, and then I don't know what else you'd need. So I don't. To not be successful would be for me to sell out on something, or to compromise on large areas of things that I truly believe in. That would be a lack of success for me. And I don't feel I've ever done that. Kind of in a cultural definition of success, I'm definitely not. But I don't care, because I think that's all pretty futile. Nothing we. Look, the current crisis we're in is crushing a bunch of stuff that we would have said was successful about 3 weeks ago, and I think we're working out that we live on a pretty fine edge. If that's how you measure it, the difference between success and it all falling apart is about 3 weeks of your business being shut. So.
Totally.
And not a whole, when Richard Branson asked to be bailed out, then seriously, 3 weeks ago, that guy was successful. So if that's all it took, then I guess what? 3 weeks after, I'm still as successful as I was 3 weeks ago.
Right.
So I'll take my definition over his. So.
Yeah. Good way to put it. Well, maybe you won't like this next question then, but when in your life were you most successful?
I feel right now I'm not compromising anything I believe in right now. I would personally, because I feel responsible for my family, I would like to be a little more sustainable, if I was to use that word, financially. But I think part of the struggle is in there are ways I could probably fix that, but I would have to encroach on the other. If that makes sense.
Totally.
Okay. If push came to shove, I could probably fix that, but again, we're back to cause and effect, right? I could probably fix that if I chose to do the other, but the current season I'm in, I'm trying to stay as consistent to that as I can, and I'm believing that given enough time, sticking with it and with the momentum, that the second will come. But I'm not talking about attaining a level of wealth. I'm just talking about a sustainable, healthy kind of rhythm of those things. So yeah.
Do you find that responsibility?
So now, maybe the answer is now.
Yeah. Do you find that responsibility sets you free in a way? Like we've mentioned how it has the it can hold you back, but also like I've found since moving to Germany, I'm having to make a lot of very, very difficult decisions about, especially now that the coronavirus pandemic has kind of taken control of the world, and there's so many financial and life decisions and business decisions, creative decisions that I've had to make in the last 5 months, and I'm also responsible for,
Yep.
My small family over here. Well, partly responsible.
Yeah.
And that has just taught me so much and set me free in so many ways. Would you say that you have a similar relationship with responsibility?
Yeah. Absolutely. So, I'm going to tell a story, another one. In the context of music, right? Let's do it. So, I don't know if I'm sure you did. The documentary, where Dave Grohl goes and gets the sound, the old analog desk out of, I think he's at the Sun City recording studio. And he's in complete love with this analog desk, right? But it's like, I don't know, it's like 48 channels or something. Well, that's it, right? It's 48 channels. And he says, you'll see how this is relevant in a second, stay with me. He said, in a world of infinite options and limitless ability to add just another track and do just another thing, and literally in Pro Tools, I can make a song as layered as I want. He said, the discipline of having a constraint of 48 tracks means that it forces your creativity. He said it's 48 tracks, 12 of them are drums, because that's just the way it is. 6 of them are guitars. But like he says, really, we're down to a handful of tracks where you can be creative. He said, but what it means is you become very focused and very clear about what it is you put in. I think it becomes very clear about what you go after, what decisions you make with your life. And so I think that, the responsibility, which, yes, you could see it as a negative constriction of options, but it's not a bad thing. It actually focuses you on the task at hand, I think. I think lots of people who are creating, who have the opportunities to do whatever they want, it's too much. It's actually too much. And so, I think responsibility helps you. It's like going to a restaurant and there being too many things on the menu. Like, just give me 4 things to choose. I'll just, give me fish, chicken, meat, and pasta. Like, just leave me alone. Like, but I think in our world we get told that that's limiting our creative, but actually it's actually quite helpful. There's a freedom in that. I don't feel like I'm missing out on something, or I've picked the wrong thing, or I'm doing this. This is what's next for me. And so, I think responsibility for sure helps build. That's why I say, when I say I've got this in my life, and I don't wish it was any different. I don't. Like, I'm actually really happy that exists. I'm happy there are 48 channels, because you can do amazing things with 48 channels. I've met plenty of people with infinite channels who don't know what to do with their life. So, maybe that answers your question.
If you could have 2 billboards, one in LA, and one in Rundle Mall of Adelaide, or even you live south of Adelaide, right? Is that still the case?
Yep. McLaren Vale.
So, right, okay. So maybe even on the main street of McLaren Vale. So being, a small town, and then one in LA also.
Yeah.
What would they say and why? Would they be different or the same?
That's what they'd say. They'd be the same, and they'd say why.
Okay.
That's it. And you can, and people can take it however they want.
Right. Fantastic.
Because if you don't know the answer to that question, in whatever circumstance or context you're in, we've probably got a problem, right? So that'll be the other book. If you want another book, it would be Simon Sinek's Start With Why. And his other book is Leaders Eat Last. That's the premise of Simon's teaching around Start With Why, and He's the guy that talks about the difference between Apple and Microsoft, and that Apple starts with Y, and Microsoft starts with what.
Yeah.
And so so Apple says, do you want to change the world? Do you want something that'll seamlessly enable your creativity to be pushed out into the world with tools that enable you to create things that you can only imagine of? Oh, by the way, we sell computers. Do you want one? Whereby, Microsoft or IBM, the PC world has often said, this is a computer. It has this much power. It does these 10 things. Do you want one? And people said, why? There's something about capturing the why. And so unless whether you live in McLaren Vale or you live in LA, I'd imagine there's plenty of people in LA that don't know the answer to the question why. I think the answer would probably be because everyone else is. And that's a terrible answer to that question.
Yeah.
There's probably some more people in McLaren Vale that could answer the why, because probably there's a bunch of people who decided to live and move there for a reason.
Yeah.
Maybe to escape LA. I don't know. So I'd be fascinated to know what those answers were in both of those places.
Yeah. I was actually going to ask about small towns because I grew up in a tiny, tiny town, about 600 people, and it became so crucial for me to leave because many, many reasons. It's a huge thing to get into, but basically because you can find yourself on a loop, and only having influence from 600 people is just such a dangerous thing. And I had no idea that this whole other world existed, and to end up in Berlin is just wild. Sure. But why? Obviously, that's different for everyone. And to use your question of why have you ended up in McLaren Vale, such a small town? And I often think that perhaps I'll end up again in a small town, but it's just so important for me to get away for now.
Sure. So I was born in the UK, but I grew up in Sydney. So I did we paid our penance. We lived in Sydney for long enough. Sydney's amazing, and every time we go back, I say I miss Sydney, and my wife says, "No, you don't. You miss the idea of Sydney," and she's right. I miss going on the harbour, and she used to say to me, "When did we do that when we lived here?" And the answer to that is never. And I just sat in traffic and yelled at people. So for us, and I know the joke. The joke about Adelaide. People say, So we lived in Newcastle after Sydney, so 2 hours north of Sydney, and then we moved down to Adelaide. And people from Sydney used to say to me, "What's Newcastle like?" And I used to say, "Oh, imagine the most beautiful part of Sydney, and then imagine being able to park your car." I said, "That's Newcastle." And then people from Sydney would then say, "What's Adelaide like?" I said, "It's 1956 with really fast internet." And so, and there's some things about 1956 which are lovely, and there's some other things which aren't lovely. But on the whole, for us, it's an amazing place to live. It is slower. It is a great place to raise kids. It's beautiful. I will be honest with my personality. I think the thing that keeps me being okay living here is I can do this with people in Berlin and Los Angeles and Leuven and Michigan, and I'm not just here. I'm all over the place, and I travel, frequent enough. There are days that I feel it very difficult to generate my own momentum here. So there are days where I wake up and I'm like, there's no, I know if I lived in New York and I stepped out of my front door, there would be an inherent energy and momentum I would be given rather than me having to generate it myself. Yeah. And to be honest, on the days where I don't feel I have that within me, they're the days the buzz of the hustle and bustle is good for you. Now that's just my personality. So there are days I find it possibly a little too slow and a little too easy to not be busy and productive, and that is a challenge, but not enough that I don't want to be here.
Right.
So, ironically, we've talked. Who knows? Like once our kids have all grown up, I love Leuven. I could live in Belgium, and I know people think that Belgium's a little boring, but I love it. Like I could live anywhere. So ironically, maybe at some point, back into a level of hustle and bustle we might go the opposite way. Like you might go small to big to small. I might go the other way. I don't know. So,
yeah. Can we kind of finish up? But I don't know. I kind of, this feels like a bit of a cop-out question, but you're so good at asking questions, and you do it professionally almost. Well, not almost, certainly. But but is there anything that we haven't covered that you want to talk about, or perhaps even it may be interesting to ask me a few questions? I don't know. I just think that you're so good at it, so why not take the opportunity?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Are you feeling brave? Is probably the question. No, I am. Well, so I guess there's nothing I don't think we haven't covered. I guess what I'm intrigued. We journeyed and did some really good work and talking and working through some stuff, and I'm really excited that you've taken the step and you grabbed your 20 seconds of courage and you're dancing, and it's all kind of. I guess my question for you is any of what you're experiencing right now what you expected?
Very, very little of it is that. I mean, we've been here 5 months and we've moved apartments, I think 6 or 7 times. And I now can't go outside just as the weather's coming good. There's a lot of amazing things that are unexpected, and a lot of interesting things that are unexpected, and a lot of less good things that are unexpected as well. I think the one thing that just came totally out of the blue in moving to Berlin and living here now is this country has an obsession with the post, with mail, and with like a 1950s lifestyle almost.
Really?
Like if you need to speak to the government, you need to write them a letter, or you need to go and see them. You can't write an email. You can't visit a website.
Okay.
And the letter has to be in German. It's crazy, and I think there's a lot of positives to that. There are a lot of positives to it, but there's it's I don't know, it's kind of backwards. But in saying that, a lot of the things that I've had to kind of sort through as a result of the coronavirus, they are moving more and more online now to cope with this. So I'll be interested to see whether they go back to the post after this, or whether they whether they maintain that online presence.
Stick with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I don't know why that surprised me the most.
So no, that is interesting though. So is there anything that if you right now could talk to yourself before you left Australia, if you were to explain where you're at right now, what would have freaked out that previous you the most? Because we talked about, you want step 8. Well, what if you got a glimpse of step 8? What if the future you said, so you're going to be stuck inside of the virus and this and that? What about that story of how you are right now would have possibly freaked you out to the point where you might have reconsidered?
I moved here to not to be stable straight away, but to start my journey towards a stability in life, and to I knew that I was making a decision to work out what I wanted my lifestyle to be, and I thought the best launching place, or the best launching the best place to launch that is somewhere that I think is going to be beneficial. So like I might as well start in a place that is of the most leverage to me. And I think in many ways, in many ways Berlin is that place. But in other ways, now that I'm here and living online, I'm realizing that I could have done that from anywhere. But the inspiration that Berlin gives me is second to none. Like I don't regret moving here at all, and I would urge the Nelson from 6-7 months ago to go sooner. But also, I think what surprised me the most is, what would have freaked me out the most is that you're going to be in lockdown and like you're going over there to take the time to answer all these big questions about where you're going. And the thing that would have freaked me out is that you're actually going to have the time to do that because you're going to be inside and you can't go anywhere. But it's just been so beneficial. Yeah, exactly. Like my dream came true, and that's scary, but I have got a lot out of it, and it's incredible. Yeah.
Well, that's amazing to hear and unexpected, which is even better. But it proves that you don't know that step, and
exactly.
I think sometimes we wouldn't, if we knew that step, we would be so freaked out. The old us would be so freaked out by that step that I'm not sure we'd continue that direction anymore. Yeah. But you're ready for it now. You're there, and it's the next thing. And so I guess my reflection is, I don't have another question for you other than I look forward to hearing what step 16 looks like.
Yeah, me too.
Because that one could be fascinating. If you couldn't predict 8, imagine what 16 will look like.
Totally. Yeah. Who knows? It's a wild ride. So how can people find you online? You and your projects and what you're up to and everything.
You can find Flea Factory on Facebook. So just Flea Factory, FLEA Factory, Flea Factory. Yes, it's a weird name. Fleafactory.com.au is the website, and my podcast is on any podcast platform. It's also called Flea Factory, and where I am, talk to just so far a handful of people. Well, there's a long list of people to talk to, and it is people telling stories of how they're putting their lives together. And what I've had, very interestingly, I have a questionnaire for people to start thinking, because some of the questions I ask, I don't think people think about very often. So I send this questionnaire out, and people sort of fill it in, and it sparks them thinking. And I've had people sort of fill the questionnaire in very briefly, and I've had other people spend like 3 or 4 pages writing. And I've had people say it's been a very powerful experience for them because they're just so busy living their life. You don't take the time to reflect. So some of the conversations have been really interesting and fascinating. And so people I thought I knew when I started talking to them about their life and their history and their work history and the choices they've made and their experiences. There's a couple of times in there I've gone, wait, hang on, say that again? Because I didn't know that about you at all. And so so Flea Factor on any podcast app, but I'm just I think people's stories are fascinating. I think people are fascinating. And if I have another person say to me, why would you want to talk to me? I'm boring. Because it's just not true. We think our story is pretty mundane, but there are things in our stories that people need to hear. And they're just regular, ordinary stories from normal people, and I think they're encouraging. So that's where you can find that podcast. So you've encouraged me. I need to do some more of those. I've got a bunch of people, and they're all indoors, so I should be doing this. So they're all available. My wife's been saying it to me for the last couple of weeks. She said, people are available, get them on the phone. I'm like, okay. So that was a real fun project that I kicked off. And I've got a plan that the second season of that is I want to revisit those stories and talk about personality profiles and how that may have shaped people's ability to make decisions as well. So I think that would be fascinating because I think that would be a really interesting process. So yeah, that's the podcast if people want to find that.
Fantastic. Let's thank you so much for making the time. It's been incredible to talk to you, and
no worries.
Yeah, hopefully we can do a part 2, maybe when I'm at step 16 or you're at step 16, and I will have a lot of questions for you at a later date.
Sure. I'm more than happy to talk about those questions on your way to 16 too, so stay in touch.
Can you leave us with
That'd be great.
With just one brief thing that you would tell someone who is stuck?
Start and don't self-edit too early.
Don't self-edit. Okay.
Just get it out. So, yeah, save the editing for once you've got quantity of material or you've started doing enough stuff, and you'll work out you'll refine it. Editing is a refining process, but right now, if you're stuck, the way out is to just get it out in quantity. So if you haven't written music for a long time, just play for like 3 hours with a video camera on you and don't write any of it down and don't edit it and don't think that's good or bad. Just start getting it out. And I'm a firm believer that ideas are like train carriages, or creativity or inspiration is like train carriages. You can't selectively pick them. You can't go, I'll have idea 4, idea 8, and idea 12. I think for musicians in particular, there's this weird concept. I think we know this isn't true, but we think that Ed Sheeran only wrote 12 songs for his latest album, and they're the 12 that are on the album. It's nonsense. He wrote 150. They were the 12 that sounded any good, right? So you've got to get the quantity out, and then once the quantity is out, you will refine the quality. So I think stuck people start, and as they're writing the first sentence or the first 8 bars, they stop and go, oh, I'm not sure, maybe if I change, no, stop, just get it out and play it through or write it through or talk it through, get it out in quantity and refine later. Refining is important, but it will stop you, it'll keep you stuck. You'll stay stuck because you'll edit forever.
Thank you so much for everything that you've shared with us, and we hopefully will touch base again soon.
All right, look after yourself.
You too.
We'll talk soon.
All right, thank you. Bye.
See you, mate.